Hello, students. As I promised in class today, I'm going to go over your Thomas Jefferson Presidency quiz. I'll go over the answer and I'll explain to you why the answer is correct. Okay, so the first question here says, which of the following was a key goal of President Jefferson, right? Uh, Definitely not to stabilize the Bank of the United States. That was a Alexander Hamilton plan idea. To increase foreign investment in U.S. Treasury bonds. That's not correct. To eliminate seditious speech from newspapers. Incorrect. Your correct answer here would be Thomas Jefferson wanted to reduce the size of the federal government. Remember, Jefferson was a proponent of states' rights and a weak United States government. He didn't think that the U.S. government should be taxing people, and as a result, he didn't think that the U.S. government should be spending much money. Let's move on to our next question. It says, which of the following best describes Thomas Jefferson's relationship with the American military? Okay. Jefferson created a large, expansive navy to defeat pirates. That's not correct. Jefferson expanded the army to defend against Indian attacks. That's not correct. Jefferson used the military as a symbol of American patriotism. That is definitely not it. Jefferson was not a fan of big militaries. Our fourth option, Jefferson distrusted the military and dramatically cut its budget and manpower. Your fourth choice here is correct. So because Jefferson wanted a small, weak federal government, Jefferson also wanted a small, weak military. All right, militaries were expensive to maintain. Okay. Our third question, what is judicial review? So one little chunk of our Thomas Jefferson presidency, we really went over what was going on with the Supreme Court. So let's read through these. It says, judicial review is the power of Congress to oversee decisions made by the Supreme Court. All right, we'll call that a maybe, right? The power of Congress to review the appointment of Supreme Court justices. That's definitely not correct. The power of the Supreme Court to declare an act of Congress unconstitutional. That is our correct answer. So judicial review, in terms of a straight definition, means that the Supreme Court can declare that a law is unconstitutional. Okay, let's just look at the fourth choice. It says the power of the Supreme Court to monitor the conduct of presidential elections. That's not true either. So our third choice here, to declare laws unconstitutional, that is the main job of the Supreme Court. All right. Our fourth question. Which of the following choices reflects the significance of Marbury v. Madison? I explained to you in our lessons that you could argue this is I think you would argue that Marbury v. Madison is the most important Supreme Court case of all time. Let's go through our choices. It described the specific types of cases that could be brought before the Supreme Court. That's not correct because it's simply not true. Marbury v. Madison established the Supreme Court's power to check the other branches of government. I would say that's a definite yes to maybe. We'll come back to that. Marbury v. Madison limited the Supreme Court's effectiveness by requiring it to hear more cases. That's definitely not true. And then the fourth, it weakened the Supreme Court in relation to the White House and Congress. That is not true. So our correct answer here is the second choice, that Marbury v. Madison established the Supreme Court's power to check the other branches of government. Let's explain this. So if the Congress can create a law and the president can sign that law into effect, that essentially means that judicial review, that power, basically allows the Supreme Court to check the power of the Congress and check the power of the president in case the president and the Congress come together and pass a law that violates the U.S. Constitution. Okay, so once again, the correct answer, Marbury v. Madison, it was a second choice, established the court's power to check the other branches of government. Okay, next, the Louisiana Purchase was significant to the United States because, okay, the first choice, it nearly doubled the size of the United States. That is true. So we're going to keep that as a maybe. We're going to see if there's any better answers. 2, It helped the United States challenge British power in North America. That's not really true because at this time, Britain really didn't have any territory left that in terms of, in terms of North America. I guess you could say Canada, but Louisiana really didn't have much to do with Canada. The third choice, the Louisiana Purchase set a precedent regarding the purchase of territory without congressional approval. That's a kind of a maybe, I guess you could say. And then fourth, the Louisiana Purchase took New Orleans out of Spain's control. That's not true because basically you would argue that Louisiana belonged to France. So Spain transferred it to France. So that's not true. So really what you have here is you have a choice between choice A, it doubled the size of the United States, and C, it set a precedent regarding the purchase of territory without congressional approval. A is your better answer, and it's really close, but A is your better answer because the significance of the purchase is that it doubled the size of America for a very cheap price. Now, Thomas Jefferson did have to run the purchase by Congress. It didn't necessarily have to be approved, but C is an okay answer. A is your better answer. So if you kind of got stuck between those two and you chose the wrong one, it's okay. But just be aware that the size of Louisiana and the ease of which we doubled the size of our country is a more significant development. Okay. All right, the next question. The Embargo Act failed because the Non-Intercourse Act limited its power. That's not true. Next, the Federalist Party rallied against it. That's not true. It caused American merchants to lose money and had little effect on Britain and France. That is a perfect description of the right answer. Okay, so it caused a lot of economic hardship and it didn't have the effect on the countries that we wanted it to have. So that's a good answer. The last answer says Spain replaced the loss of U.S. trade activity with increased trade in North America. So that's not true. So your correct answer is the third choice. Okay, almost done. This is a tough one. It says all of the following accurately describe Jefferson's purchase of the Louisiana Territory from France, except, okay. So let's see. So what we're going to do with this one is, this is one of those questions that says except, which means that 4 of these statements are true and 1 of them is not true. So let's read through each one. It opened the Mississippi River permanently to Western farmers. That is a true statement, okay? So that's not our correct answer. The Louisiana Purchase ended the threat of Native American raids on Western settlements. That is not true. So we're going to kind of hold that answer as a maybe. All right, so we know that this one could be the right choice. The Louisiana Purchase 3 was made possible by the failure of Napoleon's forces to suppress a slave revolt. That is true. The fourth choice, it showed Jefferson's considerable flexibility in dealing with foreign policy. That's true. And then lastly, it violated Jefferson's own views regarding strict construction. That is true. All right, so for this question about the Louisiana Purchase, so which one of these answers is not true, which is basically what it's asking you, that would be your second choice. It ended the threat of American Indian raids on the frontier. Actually, to be historically accurate, the opposite of this would be true, that when we bought Louisiana, we actually had more Indian attacks on the frontier. Okay. The next one. A major reason why Thomas Jefferson was interested in purchasing Louisiana from France was that he wanted to establish a precedent for the expansion of presidential authority. Okay. That's what he did, but that's not really why he was interested in it. So we're not going to mark that as correct. He wanted an area beyond the Mississippi River to which Eastern American Indians could be removed. That's not the primary reason. He had learned from Lewis and Clark the untapped mineral resources in Western areas. That's not true. He hoped to cement a Franco-American alliance against the British. That's not true. So this kind of leaves the last answer. It says he hoped to preserve an agricultural society by making abundant lands available to future generations. That's your correct answer. So Jefferson believed that you had to expand the United States so that everybody would have the ability to have land. Okay. The election of 1800 turned into a crisis because two candidates tied in the Electoral College. That's your correct answer. So you have Aaron Burr and Thomas Jefferson both tie. Let's just go through the other choices. There were widespread claims of voter fraud in multiple states. Not true. The previous president refused to accept the results. That's not true. And there was a riot in Washington, D.C. That is not true. Lastly, why did Thomas Jefferson refer to his election as the Revolution of 1800? Okay, it says it was the first election in U.S. history where voters had cast ballots. That's not true. It was the first peaceful transfer of power from the Federalists to the Democratic Republicans. That's your correct answer. Okay, so you have a peaceful transfer from one political party to the other for the first time. It was the first time that a person who was born poor was elected president. That's not true. And then lastly, it was the first time that there was not radical violence. That's not true either. Okay, so those are your answers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this question here about why the Louisiana Purchase was significant. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, just because I think talking through this, our first choice and our third choice, I think you could make an argument that both of them actually are correct. So if you put A or C, I'm going to mark your answers correct, because I feel like this was, out of all of them, this was the only one that was really disputable where you could argue there are two correct answers. So if you put choice 1 or choice 3, I will change that. All right. If you have any further questions or you want to check back with me, just send me a message and we'll check that out. Okay, everybody, have a good day.